Never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. Hope you're doing well out there in the drag racing universe. God knows we are. Excited. We got a barn burner of a show for you today. We're down a couple of guys. We got JT, the ongoing Drag Illustrated team member vacations that have happened the last few months. It's almost unbelievable. Every time I turn around, hey, I'm going on vacation. I'm not going on vacation. What the hell are all you guys doing going on vacation? Anyways, JT's out of pocket this week on vacation. Blake's out of town. So anyways, it's Mike Carpenter and I on the ones and twos. What's up, big dog? But we've got...
I think you did go on vacation.
I don't think I did.
Yeah, you did.
What?
Yeah, you went somewhere. Florida.
I went to Florida the week after World Series of Pro Mod, which surely to God I deserve that.
It's so long ago now that...
But that was a long time ago. And the whole time I was doing deals on the phone, so it wasn't... one of these days I'm going to do one of these unplug deals. Mm-hmm. I was telling somebody that yesterday that I've had to really come to terms with how different my life is today versus like 20 years ago when we started the magazine, where it was like on the road to the next race and just grinding, staying up all night, writing stories and whatever.
Staying up all night, designing and uploading.
And now
we had to hit that upload date.
Oh, God. And now it's like, okay, wake up on the phone, send text that I'm on the phone, stay on the phone, send text that I'm on the phone.
Yeah, we were on the phone all day yesterday. It felt like I was actually up at my dad's shop getting some work done on my wife's car, and I was just on the phone the entire time. They think I'm like, I don't know, something's wrong with me. That's like a whole different really world. Like, why is he on the phone the entire day? It's
really weird, but I'm happy about it, man. I love talking to racers, and just speaking of talking to racers, I failed to mention that the reason we're calling this episode a barn burner, and I think it's going to live up to it, is we're going to have Chase VanZant on the show, fresh off a big win at the NHRA national event in Seattle a couple of weeks ago. We were out of pocket last week. So we missed the opportunity to have him on the show immediately following, but I didn't want to miss it because for a lot of reasons. A, I'm a big Chase VanZant guy. I've known this young man since he was a wee lad, racing motorcycles and junior dragsters up at Eddyville Raceway Park in Oskaloosa, Iowa. Know his family, his wife's...
your family. I mean, your family and Blake's not here, but Blake's family, tight with Chase as well. This is like a deep-rooted family
circle moment. Yeah, it's a real full circle moment. My wife goes on vacation with Chase's mom every summer. So it's a really cool thing. And I'm excited to have Chase on the show because he was a member of the Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30. He's someone that I think has a really bright future in the sport of drag racing. He's got all the intangibles. He can talk the talk, good-looking kid, clean cut, very talented racer, very talented motorcycle rider, and finally got it done. I mean, there's nothing like winning your first NHRA national event or even your first major event like that. And I always joke that typically one Wally is worth about 5 more years of trying. You know what I mean? Like that's
throw you a bone, man.
They got to throw you a bone. The racing gods got to throw you a bone every once in a while. And Chase, and let's just say he earned it. This wasn't, I mean, what a weird year for NHRA Pro Stock Motorcycle. Like amazing in every imaginable way.
I mean, that was like a monumental win. I mean, we didn't know when Gage's run was going to end. And then for Chase VanZant to step up there and in that run that's like going to be a career highlight for him. For the
forever,
rest of his life, like, whether he knows it or not.
And being the one that's responsible for stopping the freight train the runaway freight train that has been Gage Herrera, it's a pretty, like you said, that's going to be a moment that people look back on for years and years and years to come. And he'll be the one that kind of upset the apple cart, derailed that train. And it seems like that train has officially been derailed. We saw Matt Smith get the job done this past weekend in Sonoma. Very colorful interviews afterwards, calling Steve Johnson annoying and saying that the VanZant guys are sandbagging. I mean, it's a wild time in pro stock motorcycle. And I mean, and speaking of which, Corey Reed, who we had on the show just 2 weeks ago, goes out in his second ever NHRA Pro Stock start and takes that bad boy to that J&A Service Camaro to the final and falls to Aaron Stanfield, a great drag race. Had a weekend full of great drag races. Really incredible thing. We've got news that Jack Beckman has officially accepted the replacement driver role at John Force Racing. Joint task force, they're calling it something internally. They put out that killer social media video. Big news. I think this has been really well received.
We had did you catch Darren in the background reading the Pro Superstar Shootout issue of Drag Illustrated? I thought that was a nice little touch.
That was a nice touch. I like seeing Darren at JFR. I think that's a really cool, knowing that young man for as long as I have. I can't help but say I'm like proud of him and happy for him, because
I wonder who made that executive decision. I like it though.
I like it. I like it a lot, man.
But like talking about all that stuff that's just happened, we need that. We need that in the sport. Gage Herrera is a machine and just awesome. And I don't think anyone would argue that. But like, we need that. We need Corey Reed going to the finals in pro stock. I think that is something that's missing in those classes more times than not. It's almost just repeatable and predictable. And I love the banter also. Matt Smith is always good for some banter when he starts getting on a roll or he gets pissed off. He comes by that very naturally. And I think I mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago, I talked to Matt. It was actually at Lizzie Musey's services. So not under the best of circumstances, but we were chatting it up, and he said then they found something and they're coming. And I think it's not only him, but the VanZant team. And, these guys, these competitors will only let somebody like that Gage Herrera team just stomp all over them for so long before they really, put the nose to the grindstone and figure out how to take that next step. And it seems in pro stock motorcycle, it's the 60 foot. I think Matt Smith, he talked about that then, and we started to see these guys just get more aggressive, and just the VanZant team really set the bar for getting this thing moving early. And I think the rest of the teams have been playing catch up on that, and they're making some strides now. So really cool to see. Before we go any further, I would like a couple of housekeeping notes I want to go over. First of all, I think it's Jim Parks' birthday today.
Ooh. Longtime friend Parks of the show. Let's give it up. Happy birthday.
He's turning 27 today. Happy
27?
Happy 27th birthday, Jim.
Are you serious about that?
Hell no. I was going to say, he's definitely older than 27. I think he's got like a fully grown daughter or something. So I don't know. Jim,
I thought his daughter was like in college.
Jim's young looking, but he might be getting up there. We'll see.
No, it's what else? What other
a couple of things. Actually here locally, 44. You're older than me, Jim. Wow. Here locally, actually, it's a kind of a deal that's caught me off guard, and I've been catching up on it. But NC Pro Modder, our buddy Jay Warren, his father-in-law was killed tragically in an auto accident here in Charlotte, actually East Charlotte, where I grew up, where I was born and grew up, and I know exactly this road and intersection where this happened. Him and his father-in-law and his mother-in-law were going home from church and somehow got involved in a street racing accident. Two 17-year-olds were street racing and ran into their vehicle and killed his father-in-law and has his mother-in-law in critical condition in the hospital. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Jay, to his wife Lori and her family, and Jay as well. That man, you just never know. I mean, that coming home from church. And I was reading about it. It's actually all over the local news today is how I kind of caught up on it. His father-in-law is well known in the community, volunteers all the time for Habitat for Humanity, building homes. Just seems like a great guy, and tragically was lost in kind of ironically in a street racing accident. And we know of Jay's love for drag racing and all he does for this sport. So for that to happened is just kind of, I don't know, like just ironic and tragic, and you hate to see it, but I wanted to give him a shout out. And then a family I know you're close with, the Beaner family. I don't know if you saw this.
Yep.
About Victoria going to take off the rest of the year for scoliosis treatment and a spinal fusion, which you may have known more about than I did, but I saw that news today, and someone that's just, on the rise, a huge shining star in junior drag racing, has aspirations to go on to professional drag racing. Great,
the highest levels. I think she aspires to race
family.
pro mod.
Yeah. And so for that, I really had no knowledge of that. And so to see her sideline for the rest of the year and kind of battling that, that caught me off guard as well. So I just wanted to give a shout out to both of those families.
Yeah, man. The Beaners have become close friends of ours. My daughter, Sophia, has gotten close with Victoria. They text and talk on the phone a lot. And this has been going on for a while now. And they knew that it was going to, at some point, they were going to pull the trigger on this. But they kind of had the family, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but they kind of had the family powwow that said, we need to do this now. And they chose to do it. And it sounds like everything's going well, or is proceeding as planned. So that's great news. And we keep them in our thoughts and prayers, man. And I got to be honest, I was a little bit taken aback by the news about Jay Warren's family. I actually, this is the first I'm hearing of it. And I'm heartbroken. Jay and I think Jay, the thing I see in Jay that I appreciate the most, and I've been having this conversation a lot, is just, I love his passion for our sport. And I love when I see people that are so willing to do all the hard work that goes into these, traveling to all these events, taking time off work, going without pay, unpaid vacation, all these different things, all in the name of, trying to grow and build the sport of drag racing. I have these conversations frequently that, there's people out here that don't like me, or whatever. And I still try to encourage and push them along as best I can, because we can't do I want to see all these guys talking about drag racing. Like, we talk about it a lot here, but we need more talking heads. We need more pundits. We need more, hot takes and zingers coming from people. And this keeping the conversation going during the week, that's really, it's an important thing. And we all treat it like it's optional. Like, even we were guilty of that early on. When we first launched this show, and some of these things be like, let's not do the show this week. We have to do it. We have to be talking about this stuff, because if we don't, no one else will. Like, no one else is. And we need more and more people. Like, that's why I'm so thankful that, like the Jason Galvin, Jason Logan with Life's a Drag. They were live just a few minutes ago. Elon Warner launching another podcast with Buddy Hull, talking funny cars. They got an episode dropping tonight on NHRA's channel on Roku, featuring Ron Capps. We need more of these things. Damon Steinke and Ellen Eschenbacher announced that they're going to do a podcast. We need more of this. We need more people talking about it. Shake and Bake was back again last night with Lyle Barnett, Stevie Jackson, and Courtney Enders. These things are good. We need more of this. We need as much of it as humanly possible. And we need people talking about drag race, and we need these conversations carrying over to social media and carrying over to the bench racing part of this whole deal is very important. Steve Logan in the comments, I like to talk, just saying, hey man, I have had this conversation with Al Tucci, and announcers type podcast, or guys that just have those booming radio voices, getting them to, wax poetic and riff on what's going on week to week. I think it'd be a great show, and I'm all ears. Yep. Steve Logan, if you want to put together a program, get her done, buddy, because I'm all for it. My goal is to have original content on Drag Illustrated's YouTube channel and social media channels 5 days a week minimum. We launched Kayla Zadell's new show, Reaction Time, a few weeks ago. I think she just put out episode 5 Monday morning. What a labor of love that has become for her. I can't say enough about how the show's turning out. I actually told them Monday after the show aired, it airs at 11 a.m. on Monday mornings, and she goes through a lot of work preparing all the graphics, doing all the stuff, waiting on putting the show together Sunday night so that it can go out on Monday morning. It's a lot of work, but as a drag racing fan, bro, this is a big deal. How cool is it that there is a show you can watch in 15 minutes on Monday morning that tells you essentially every significant happening of this in the sport of drag racing over the weekend?
Not just NHRA.
Not just NHRA.
She even covered the Swanstrom, Travis Harvey deal in Darlington this weekend, what they had going on. So even stuff that's off the radar that you may not hear about, she's covered it. So yeah, that's a total rock star move. It's tough to do that. And you have to have the passion. You have to have the want to to do it. Like back to what we were talking about with Jay, he's been doing a lot of stuff in Canada, going to Canada and covering. I don't have it in front of me right now, but covering some series they have up there. I believe it's a Door Slammer series. He was headed there this weekend to Grand Bend, but is not going to go, obviously, with this news. So someone that's trying to build it and build a brand and a business as well, and giving it his all. So really just a tragic deal. And I know it's going to be tough for him because, it's not drag racing. We talk about this all the time. When these kids or whatever's happening here on the street, that's street racing. That's illegal street racing. It's not drag racing. But his close association to the sport,
it sounds like not trying to be a day,
deal.
and I'm not trying to defend illegal street racing, but I also feel it does a disservice to that community of people that do that stuff, because two kids running fast at noon on a public roadway, that's even that is just
it was at like
reckless
9:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
Yeah,
they were coming back from church, so
unbelievable. It's just very bad news. I hate to hear that. My stomach turns every time I see a news story. I set my Google alerts up, my Google News alerts, to send me an email like anytime the word street racing, drag racing, I've got a bunch of them set up. And I hate it because I'll get the one and it's street racing accident in Alabama, and I go click on it and it turns out that it was like some dudes on street bikes cutting donuts in the middle of an intersection. It's like, well, that's not street racing. Like don't even use the word racing. I don't know that that's good news. Don't use the word racing. This wasn't racing. This is idiots acting like idiots. So anyways, well, our heart goes out to those folks, the Beaners, the Warren family, and everybody else that's been touched by these deals. It's been a weird year in that regard. Lots of those things, but on the flip side, man, a lot of positive things happen in the sport of drag racing. I don't want to be too self-serving here, but I do want to tell you guys that we've got some major news dropping at Drag Illustrated this Friday. We haven't set a time. We'll probably put that time out, in the coming days or whatever later today, but we're going to make some really significant news on Friday afternoon. I'm genuinely excited about this deal. It seems like a logical progression of what we've been working towards really since 2005. Honestly, this has always been kind of the goal to get to this point. And I'm genuinely excited. I think we're gonna raise some eyebrows this week. So, anyways,
dropping some hints on the social media. Been seeing it, getting everybody stirred up with those posts about you better get a pro mod. We better.
Well, if you don't have,
if I had 30, what did you post last night?
If I had 37 Top Fuel cars, I would trade them all for one pro mod. And it's true. I want to go to heaven. And you get in, like you roll up to the pearly gates there and you're automatically in if you own a pro mod. So that's a great news for everybody involved. So that just kind of takes care of that. This is
confirmed.
It's confirmed.
Yep.
It's in the Bible, Mike. Read it. Pick up a Bible and you'll know, obviously, pro mods, like I think it's in Revelations, actually.
Yes.
Anyways,
I'm just reading some of these comments in here, man, from this post.
Well, it was the funniest ones is when people start putting their shit in there for sale. You know what I mean? Like, well, if you need one, Mark Woodruff put his orange 69 Camaro in there. And I actually hate to see that because I'd like to see Mark Woodruff stay. I'd like to see him maintain a presence in big tire racing. Mark's a great guy. And he's one of those iconic names that have had a really big part of my drag racing career. I mean, the first ever heads up drag race that I put on in 2005, Mark Woodruff came from Arnold, Missouri, towed all the way up to Eddyville, Iowa, brought two cars. He had a 6970 Nova with like a 706 that he ran in True 10.5. We called it Limited Street. And then he also had his fabled blue Corvette, but it was black back then with a big Fulton nitrous motor in it. And he brought that car as well. And I think he was racing it in Outlaw 10.5. But yeah, man, I would really like to see Mark not sell that car and stay in the pro mod ranks. But it's I will tell you that's kind of the goal here is what we're trying to build is an environment where people that maybe operate in other parts of the drag racing community, maybe they race pro stock motorcycle, maybe they race NHRA pro stock, maybe they race Top Fuel, maybe they're a nostalgia racer. But I want to create an environment where there's still a good reason to have a pro mod car in your arsenal, have a pro mod car in your stable, because we're going to keep you busy during a time when you may not have anything else going on. So it's exciting times, man. It looks like we got the man of the hour in the green room right now.
Yes, sir.
Before I turn it over, I do want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors. This show would not be possible without the support of companies like Stroud Safety Equipment. Make sure you support the companies that support us. just hooked me up with all new belts, parachute, and all the stuff I need for my new little toy car. So log on to StroudSafety.com. Support the people that support you. It's what we use. It's what pro racers use. The fastest door slammer in the world runs Stroud equipment. So take care of the people that take care of us. I'd also like to say, thanks to Mark Bading, the whole team at Redline Synthetic Oils, Courtney Enders, Mike Levy, everybody at FlowRacing.com that supports what we do here, a broadcast partner of ours. We simulcast our show on the Flow Racing YouTube channel and Facebook page, so we appreciate their support, man. But before I ramble on any longer, let's get to the man of the hour. We're a little bit late. We're a little bit late to the party on this. We're a week behind, but it wasn't because we didn't want to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the one, the only Chase VanZant, fresh off a win at the NHRA National event in Seattle. Chase, what's going on? You in the Trick Tools headquarters?
I am. Yeah, I'm in the conference room taking a little break from some welding and fabrication. So it's nice to be on. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, dude, thank you. Man, I appreciate you being on here. I got to say, the picture that we actually used for the thumbnail to promote this week's episode is a shot of you, Chase. For those that haven't seen it, I encourage you to get online, just type in, Chase VanZant NHRA into Google, and you'll likely see this image of you holding that Wally like a newborn child, laying your eyes on it for the first time in its, swaddling clothes or whatever. What was that moment like? I mean, because it's no secret that we've seen Gage Herrera serve as this dominating force in pro stock motorcycle throughout 2024. I think a lot of people were kind of preparing for that to be the case late last year, that, hey, the writing was kind of on the wall that these guys had a decided advantage and were going to be tough company for the foreseeable future. Can you just kind of take us through maybe your mindset before we get into your reaction about winning? What has this year been like for you? Someone that has made the big jump into professional drag racing, made a massive commitment, partnered to go in on a full tour deal. You didn't dabble. You committed to the entire series. You bounce back, fight back from a very scary accident. What's it been like trying to stay excited when you've got someone running away with things seemingly like Gage Herrera?
Man, it's tough. Like this year has been such an interesting year because I'm coming back from, a little bit of an injury. And, I know I've said it a lot, but my very first run after my injury, so that accident happened Q1 in Dallas. My very next run was Q1 in Gainesville this year. So it was like, that was a long time of just like nervousness and just like anxiety leading up to that moment. And so it's just been kind of an odd year for me, at least trying to get back to where I'm comfortable. And like when I roll up into the water box for that first round of the weekend, that I'm ready to go and feeling confident. And so, it's nice, like when the season really picked up, because once we got to, Seattle and through Norwalk and had that kind of tight bunch of races, it was just like, okay, I'm starting to feel like myself again, like I was comfortable on the motorcycle, and I showed up and I wasn't just like, man, what if there's a crosswind? What if there's this and that? And going through all of these negative scenarios in my head. So it's just one of those things where it's just been kind of an uphill fight for me this year. Last year I was so new. I really didn't know what to expect or what to think. And I think that was a huge, benefit for me. And this year it's like, okay, I think I know what the bike's capable of, and I think I know where we maybe should stand. And on top of that, along with the injury and coming back from that, it was just like, I had a lot going on in my head. And, Jerry called me, I think after Virginia, when I red lit second round, and he was just like, man, you got to relax and have fun. He's like, you're trying too hard. You're thinking about it too much. And he's like, you're never going to win, when your approach is like that. And so he's like, just relax, go have fun, do your thing. You know what to do. And so I tried really hard. That's easier said than done, but tried really hard to do it. In Seattle, obviously, we got what we wanted.
It was...
we lost Wes.
Uh-oh.
We'll see if we can get him back. But yeah, I mean, on top of all that, everything you just described, also just having Gage Herrera kind of dominating the class in that. I mean, what was the discussion in the pits or amongst your team or other teams? Because I felt like I've just heard some, discussion. I had a discussion with Matt Smith actually a couple of weeks ago, and he said, we're coming. We're all working toward it, and we're coming. Do you see the whole class kind of pushing the boundaries or pushing to that next level because the competition was raised because of what Gage was doing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's what Tim Kalungian, my crew chief, that's what he was just preaching, at the end of last year. He's like, we just got to get to work. That's all we can do is get to work. And, when someone goes out there and like at the end of last year, when he's got half a tenth on the field, there's not even a bike that's close at that point. It's like, it, it's possible and it's out there. There are numbers to get, and so I think Tim's whole point was just like, we all have the same rule package. I mean, we're all competing with the same wheelbase, same tire, all this stuff, and someone's getting it done better than we are, better than the whole class of motorcycles is. So his whole thing was just like, we just got to get to work. We got to find it. And so not even our mantra, but just the only thing is like, we've just been quietly doing our work. We've been working really hard on our 60 foots. And I think in Sonoma, we had 6 of the 10 fastest 60 foot times of the weekend. So it's like, that's a lot of communication between me and Tim. But, as far as the mile an hour, I'm not knowledgeable enough to tune one of these things to get every last ounce of mile an hour out of them. So for Tim, it's like, he's been on the dyno just plugging away, trying to find that little bit of mile an hour to close the gap because, up until the last 2 weekends, Gage has had 2 mile an hour on us constantly, and Matt's always had mile an hour. It's just the nature of that motor combination. And so once we found that, it's like, man, we've really got something we can play with here.
My computer cut out there for a second, but I'm back now, and I was just curious, the 60 foot thing that everybody's been talking about, is that in your approach as a rider, what you're doing with your actual body? Is it bike setup? Is it, because we've seen this in other walks of the drag racing life. I can't help but think back to when Billy Glidden made his his grand arrival in ADRL Extreme 10.5. And it was like the entire class had kind of settled into the 430s in the 8th mile. Billy Glidden shows up, and he's got a lightweight car that's kind of very much tailored to the rules, and he starts crushing everybody in the 60 foot, making better runs than anybody else was making. And the next thing you know, Billy's running 420s or high teens. Everybody else is kind of stuck, mired in these 430s, but he made everybody kind of get out of their own comfort zone, and the entire class ultimately elevated. It took a while, but the class caught up to him, narrowed the gap, and in some cases actually surpassed where he was. Is that what we're seeing, like kind of across the board? Is everybody's had to step up? We all working with the same stuff here. Everybody's had to step up, get out of their comfort zone, try some things, maybe get out of the threshold of their normal notes. We've seen that a long time in various types of drag racing where, hey, these are the wheel speed numbers. These are the numbers. And then, but you realize like, okay, we're going to have to go somewhere we've never been before. We're going to have to try some things we've never done before. Is that what this whole thing has been rooted in, or is it a power thing strictly?
No, I think, like our motorcycles have plenty of power through first gear. We're pulling power out to manage first gear. And really I'm shifting first gear just at or after the 60 foot cone. So, like when you look at the big picture of like the motorcycles, it's so unique compared to any other car side of racing because the rider is about 20% of the whole weight going down the track. So like I weigh 150 pounds. My motorcycle with me on it at the end of the track when I roll through the scales has to be 645. So the rider is really influential in that first period, and what we're feeling and how we're moving. We aren't strapped in. Our body weight is very much, it's not rigid, we aren't strapped in tight, there's a lot of room for movement in that first 60 foot, and what you do with your body really allows you to do it. But the other side of that is for Tim to manage the clutch and the power and our first gear ratio, things like that. It's like we really needed to communicate a little better. I think at the beginning of last year we were leaving some numbers out there, and it was really like halfway through last year that he was just like, I can look at these graphs and the numbers on the computer all I want, but he's like, there's nothing that is as telling as what you're feeling on the motorcycle. And up until this point, I just kind of kept my mouth shut because I'm like, this dude's won a championship with Jerry. He's won a lot of races. He had the national record at the time with Karen. And I'm like, he can tell more, like, when I let go of the clutch, I got my eyes closed. I'm just praying, and it's just like, it really took me and him talking to kind of figure out like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, you know, this is what the graph looks like sometimes when I notice this. And so it's like, well, let's add a little more power at the hit and see what that does. And so then it's like, through some of my input and some of his ideas, it's like we kind of find like some wheel speed, like the shape of the wheel speed graph that we want, and like this typically produces this result and stuff like that. And when I feel this, it typically produces this result. And so it's just been a lot of that, you know, communication back and forth of like, this is what I think it needs in this area of the, you know, between the starting line and the 60 foot. And we've really, really figured it out and got ourselves in a pretty good window, I think.
Do you
Well,
think that's
a couple of
what's
things.
like across the board? That's what we're seeing out of the Matt Smith team. And do you think like the dam is broken now? Or is this just because we did see some weird stuff out of Gage's bike? I believe not starting, just like stuff that when you're on the kind of run that he's been on and you avoid, it helps you go on these unbelievable streaks. But then eventually just the odds catch up with you and you're going to have weird stuff happen. So are we seeing the tide turn permanently? Or was this just, you know, everyone caught Gage and then we're going to see them continue to, you know, maybe even they step up some more? Or how do you feel about the state of the class as a whole, not just your team?
You know, right now, like, I think we're in a pretty good spot, you know, like 3 weeks, 3 different winners on different platforms. You know, like we do have a VanZant cylinder head, but ours is not, it's different. We get a VanZant cylinder head and make it into our own, you know, with our own program and everything. And I think that's one of the misconceptions out there is like you buy a VanZant cylinder head and you get what Gage Herrera has on his bike. And it's like, well, no, that's different. Like you aren't paying for the R&D, you're paying for the part that came off the machine, you know? So like, yes, we have a VanZant cylinder head, but it's the work of Brad and Lon at KB and Tim, my crew chief, and a lot of them. But you know, I think when a bike goes out there, or any car, anything goes out there and performs, you know, head and shoulders above the rest, it just, like I said earlier, it just shows that it can be done, you know. And so then you have to look at like where can we get those numbers at? And you know, I think Matt's really stepped up his 60 foots. You know, I've never messed with a V-twin. I don't know what it's like to 60 foot a V-twin at all. I've never even ridden one. So, you know, I do believe that it's probably harder to do it, but we have seen fast 60 foot times out of them too. So, you know, I think there's numbers there for them to get too. But yeah, I think like the state of the class at the moment, it's like, we're really in a pretty good spot, you know, and it's kind of a bummer because we did have some guys sit out these last couple races, and it is a big trip to go out there. But, you know, I think there can be some narratives kind of spun in a negative way on the class as a whole because participation has been down just a little bit. But I don't think participation is down because people are quitting. I think they're just getting to work to find numbers, and it's not worth them to show. It's not worth it to them to show up at a racetrack and not really learn all that much to try and compete and test and all this stuff. So I think like what you're seeing is people are just taking a step back to really work on their stuff and hopefully come out swinging because, you know, like not having Ryan Ayler there and Mark Ingerson and Kelly and some of these other people, it's like, it sucks not having them there. You know, like you look at Sonoma and it's like first round I had Richard Gadsden and second round I had Matt. And it's like, those are semifinal rounds, final rounds, you know, and those are the people that you usually meet later in the day, not first round. So it hasn't been easy by any means, but I honestly think the class is in a good spot with the parity because, I mean, Gianna's flying, Angie's flying, all the MSR bikes are going fast, and the Suzukis are going fast, and it's exciting. You know, I think in the near future here, it's for the first time in a little while, you aren't going to know who's going to win come race day.
I love it. I mean, first and foremost, I did want to bring up that it's wild that you weigh 150 pounds because that's what Mike and I weigh, you know, and that's, I mean, I just honestly was a little bit.
People see me and they're like, dude, you're a cut for a pro stock motorcycle. So
I
get
I hear it all the time.
License. We got a bike.
I hear it all the time.
License.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I kind of hover right around 150, you know? So anyways, but I think it's amazing to hear that. And it's something that probably needs to be talked about more is could the narrative not be this class is so fucking hard that these guys are having to change how they manipulate their bodies. I mean, we're at this time in drag racing where everybody's talking about technology and everything's getting easier. The cars are easier to drive. Everything's better, blah, 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 blah. But then you look at pro stock motorcycle right now and NHRA pro stock as well. I mean, you got guys that qualify really, really well and then go out in the first round because they can't, you know, can't do the deal on the starting line or missing shift points here. And you talk about pulling second gear in 1/10 of a second. I mean, that's That's pretty incredible. And I think that should
Yeah.
perhaps be the narrative. Like these guys are having to change how they use their body, because it's no secret in door slammer drag racing that you move weight up, down, left, right in the car, trying to create more leverage or whatever the case may be. And it's normally with a small puck of weight, a couple pounds here, a couple pounds there. And to think about you trying to hold yourself on a motorcycle that you're not belted to, I mean, I just think that should be the story. And that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation here today, because I even hear myself going, you know what? I think I have like a renewed energy or excitement for this type of drag racing. Just having this conversation and hearing about a team that's not bitching and moaning, not posting a bunch on social, boo-hooing, crying for rule changes, but they're saying, hey, we're going to go out and find a way to be better. And it's an incredible thing. Chase, tell me about just your family, like knowing your family the way that I do, and having seen you race for all these years, and like our past being intertwined at Eddyville Raceway Park. Finding yourself in the shutdown there, I'm sure there was a little moment of solitude where you were alone before your team had gotten down there to you. What was that like, holding that Wally in your hand, taking the hat from Ned Walliser and the NHRA team? Like, I can't imagine the full circle that moment was for you.
Man, it was just crazy. Like, you look at all of the, like, I mean, literal blood, sweat, and tears, you know, like, not to try and be gory, but like, you know, I've been hurt twice drag racing, and it's something that not many people can really, I mean, injuries do happen, stuff happens out here, but like, I mean, like recently surgeries and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, I've given a lot, I think, to be out here and do this, and to finally get it done. It's like, it was just such a, you know, a childhood dream, like, one, to be out there and race pro stock motorcycle. It's like, that is a lifelong dream in and of itself. And just the opportunity, like, it gets kind of overlooked, I think, by myself when I'm out there, because it's like, you know, just the fact that I'm able to sit on this motorcycle, go down the track and compete with these guys is a dream of mine. But then, you know, when he handed me the Wally and everything like that, I think I just sat there and looked at it. You know, I was holding it by my side and just looking at it, because I'm like, man, this is a whole life's work of work, you know, for me, to get this job done. And it was just such a cool moment, because it's like, you know, I know what the team has gone through to get us to this point and have a competitive motorcycle. And, you know, that's just one side of it, but it's like, to do it for the sponsors and my family, like my dad, you know, he's the one that got me into drag racing. He's been doing it for a long time. And to do it for Trick Tools and my dad, and to share that moment with them at the end of the track was just so cool. You know, it's something that when you do start racing, you're like, man, when is that first one coming? And then when it's not coming, you're like, is it ever going to happen? You know, am I ever going to win one of these things? So for me, it was just like a huge weight off my shoulders, and not that anybody's putting pressure on me or anything. It's just one of those things that, like, man, if I could have a counter, like, in my mind of how much time I've spent just thinking about that moment, you know, and just hoping it would come, it'd be a lot of time, to say the least.
It's we joked before we brought you on here that we kind of internally always say a Wally will typically keep someone drag racing for 5 years. Like, they'll keep fighting the good fight. It's like somebody hitting it big on a slot machine, right? They go win once, and man, they're going to go broke trying to win it again. And it's a great thing when the racing gods give guys like you a taste, like, oh man, you got to throw this dude a bone. He's got to something. We got to have, like you said, you've fought through real. My wife, whenever your accident happened, she was like, I'm not letting him back on that bike. No way. No way would I let my little boy, you know, my little boy. And I said, dude, they can't not do this. Chase can't not do this. Chase can't not do this. And it's what he was put on God's green earth to do. And it was, I think the whole sport kind of sighed a breath of relief in a lot of ways, because we need young guys chasing the dream. We talk about that so frequently, that it's gotten so expensive. It's gotten so competitive, and none of those things are slowing down anytime soon. I mean, we're in an election year. The world's in a weird place. It's hard to go out here and do this, and to see you do this and put one in the win column, man. We were all very. What
was your racing background outside of motorcycles? Did you have any interest in any other classes or compete in anything else coming up? I know Wes has told the stories about Eddyville, and you know, seeing you come up as a kid. So, like, what was your initial introduction, and did you have any other interests or participate in any other classes before you ended up in pro stock motorcycle?
Yeah, I mean, we race 460. It's just a index, but it's really boomed here recently. I mean, you guys have probably witnessed it a little bit at the Snowbirds in Bradenton in December. But that was kind of what we did. But before that, when I was in juniors and we were trying to decide what to do, like I always wanted to race motorcycles. Like I wanted to be like my dad, and that's what he did. And I always had a passion for that. And it just came to a point where there wasn't a whole lot of bikes down at Eddyville on a normal weekend, and especially ones like 460, like we were racing. Sometimes some street bikes or bracket bikes, something like that. But there was a point where we were actually going to Martin, Michigan for the ET finals, and I was in a junior yet, so I was probably 15 or 16. And I was just like, for us to even race a motorcycle against other motorcycles, we have to travel so far, like I don't know what to do about that. And there was a time where we were actually just like, let's just get like a dragster or something and we'll go bracket race and it'll be fun and it'll be fine. Like I'd never driven a car or anything like that, but I was just like, we can go anywhere on any single weekend and race a dragster, like anybody does. So we kind of, this 460 index at that point had kind of started to pick up, and we still had my dad's pro mod from when he raced in 1997 to 2002 or whatever. So we were like, well, maybe let's put it together and we'll ride that, and just, if you like it, if you want to keep doing it, we'll go and travel and hit some of these races. And so that's what we did, and we kind of found a home there for a while. We started traveling all over to South Georgia and Maryland and Alabama. I mean, we were all over the place racing 460, and we were loving it. And for me, there was always just that little bit in the back of my head of where I'm like, this can't be it. Like I really need to go do some heads up racing, like whether it's pro mod or pro stock motorcycle. Like pro stock motorcycle was always the goal. Like I've been infatuated with that since I was born, but pro mod too, it's like, and there's some really cool classes, and like I love the PDRA. Like I went to a PDRA race in Indy one time and just absolutely loved it. So I'm like, if it's pro mod, like, and we can do that, it's cool too. I just wanted to keep going as far as I could because I thought I could, and so when we got hooked up with Tim and the war team, it was just one of those things where it's like I just worked for him for a year. I worked for Jerry and Karen and just traveled a little bit. And I was just like, man, just even getting to be out here at the NHRA races and working on Karen Stouffer's bike. Like I've known who Karen is forever, since I was, 8 years old or whatever. So that was cool in and of itself. And so then to get the opportunity to race, it was just wild to me. Like I said earlier, just the opportunity is something I don't take for granted.
Well, and being able to take that opportunity, Chase, and now throw your name in the hat as a real contender, someone that's people are keeping an eye on, that know is capable of winning these races, because oftentimes it serves these, you got that monkey off your back and you break through that wall, and now you've learned how to win, what it takes to win, and the team has that experience, and hopefully you can leverage that momentum moving forward. Take us through kind of looking at the rest of the season and everything that you have going on. It's hard to believe that we're a month away from the US Nationals. It's crazy how you go from the 4th of July and the next thing you know, you're like getting your Halloween decorations out. It's so crazy how time seems to fly.
Yeah, we got one event, right? I mean, that's, after you come off the Western Swing, it's Brainerd, and then it's go time.
Yeah. And we don't even go to Brainerd. So we got a month off here and we're going. So
what's the next month look like? Is it like recoup, take a breath, kind of refill the barrels, so to speak, and be ready for war when the countdown fires up? Or will you guys test, or what's like a month off look like for White Alligator Racing?
Yeah, I think they'll, as far as Tim and the team goes, they'll be hard at work on the dyno, kind of getting our motor program and everything ready for the countdown. And so, Tim's always been really methodical with how he approaches the season. So it's like, we'll try a certain amount of things throughout the year, and we'll kind of pitch ideas that don't work, or he'll kind of pitch ideas that don't work, and hopefully the goal is by the countdown to have an engine combination that works and have some depth there, to where if I ding one up first round or something, we can swap one in second round and go make it work. But as far as this month goes, for me, it's pretty relaxed. I'll be working and hopefully playing a little golf, and Yeah, hopefully, I think the week before, Indy's doing a test session, so I think we're kind of eyeing that one a little bit, just to finalize a few things. But other than that, mine is pretty normal. Show up to work every day, play some golf on the weekends, and just wait for the Indy, or, for the big go. It's hard. It's a hard month.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be brutal, especially starting to find your feet, your footing here, and then have to take a month off. It's kind of a bummer, but I'm excited to see the points reset. I mean, I was just looking at the championship points before we went on the air. You're fifth. I mean, you're in the mix. Obviously, Gage Herrera has had a commanding lead, but that's kind of the magic of the NHRA countdown, is that a lot of that goes right out the window when we get to Labor Day weekend. So, I mean, you've got to be feeling good. I mean, obviously, like you said, there's no slouches. I mean, you've got Gage Herrera, number one, Matt Smith, John Hall, Richard Gadsden, and yourself, followed by Angie Smith, Gianna, Hector Arana Jr., Steve Johnson, fresh off, his 500th career start. Another thing that's kind of hard to believe. But, I mean, there's a lot of very capable riders in that top 10 right now, but you've got to feel good about your chances, especially with the points being reset at the following the U.S. Nationals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a crazy couple of weeks, just because I think I was fourth going into Sonoma or something like that, and then got jumped around. But I think 3, 4, and 5 are all pretty tight right now. But it's just good. Like, coming off of a win, it's such a cool feeling, because it's like I had to get through the best of the best to get there, and it's like, okay, now that I know that can be done, it's like we show up in Sonoma, and who do I have first round? Richard. And it's like, oh great, like a final round matchup, first round, here we go. So but to get past him, it was just awesome, because it's like, man, it's so reassuring that, one, I can get it done, but I know the team is more than capable of getting it done. So going into the countdown, it's like I don't see a reason why after the reset we can't be up there in the 2 and 3 spot fairly early, if we keep running like this. And it's tough, like you guys have said. Matt's bikes are flying, the VanZant Hines bikes are flying, and there's not a lot of room up there at the top. So to have some of the momentum we do one race before the reset happens, it's a really, really good feeling.
It's like they always say in sports too. It's like, you got to win. You have to win one to convince yourself that you can do it, and that you have to learn how to win. And then it's like it breaks loose after that. So I agree with what you're saying. It's maybe perfect timing, even though you do have to sit out this month.
Yeah. What do you make of go ahead. I'm sorry. I was going to ask you about this all-star call out, because I think it's funny when like super nice, friendly guys such as yourself that probably wouldn't hurt a fly, have to kind of get thrown into this pro wrestling moment where you're going to have to get called out or call somebody out. I mean, is it exciting for you? I mean, you've been around some of this grudge stuff. You've been around the grudge bike scene. You've been to, like you mentioned, South Georgia Motorsports Park and Steele, Alabama. I mean, it's no secret there's some action happening on those races. Are you excited about this type of opportunity?
Oh, yeah.
Is it fun to do something different?
Oh, absolutely. Like I think the mission deal and the call out deal is awesome, just because it's like you get a race on Saturday, you get 2 races in a weekend. And like, for me, that's all I want to do is race. Like, I just want the opportunity to beat somebody, like that's all I'm looking for. So for me, it's cool. Like, it's so frustrating, because like I still have yet to win a round in the all-star call out. Like last year, Gage called me out first round, and then it was Angie, and me and Angie actually had a really good race. But it's like, more than anything, like I love the opportunity to either get called out or call somebody out and win. Like, there's hardly a better feeling than that. So for me, like I love those things. I am definitely more so one of the, like, I'll remain pretty quiet, and just like it'll be that much sweeter when I win this thing, is kind of my mindset going in. But like, for the most part, the class, it looks chippy, I think, a lot of times, but behind the scenes, like I've said it before, but I think we all know that we need each other in a sense. So we aren't going to like be malicious towards each other or anything like that. But it can definitely get a little chippy, and I like it. I think it's interesting. I think it's fun. It brings some more, I don't know.
Edge. It just, Mike
edge.
And I talk about this a lot. And I've had this conversation with some television production people, that it's like, historically, drag racers are such nice people, such good-natured people that oftentimes it doesn't make the best television because we're all pals, we're all friends, we all want to get along, we spend time together, we vacation together, our families hang out together, our kids play together at the racetrack, and then you're kind of thrown into the steel cage out there between those concrete walls, and they expect all of a sudden it to be this, no holds barred endeavor. And sometimes we see that, but I do think the coolest part is when the participants play along, like when the participants participate. That's the thing that I think I've been excited by, like Matt Smith's chippiness and even your willingness here to talk about this and embrace it, because
Steve
God knows the NHRA. Yeah, Steve Johnson. NHRA is trying to do something good here. Yeah. They're really trying hard to do something good, something that's going to create some excitement, create some energy, and get people talking. But they can't do it alone. It takes everybody. And I think that's a really astute observation, because I've seen that at play in various classes of drag racing. We've been blessed to be doing this for 20 years, and we've seen, classes come and go and racers come and go, and things get hot and kind of cool off. And it's almost always directly tied to how many of these guys and gals are swimming in the same direction. Do they realize that they do, to your point, need one another? Like, hey, I want to kick your ass. Don't get it twisted. All I think about is beating you. But I need you. I need you to be there to try to beat, and that's the whole thing. And I'm glad to see all you pro stock bike riders leaning in instead of leaning away from this.
And it's even that class, I feel like it's needed a chase. It's needed some fresh blood in there. We've had some of these guys like Matt, Steve. I mean, the Iranas, a lot of these names have been there for years. That's what Gage was, a breath of fresh air. And then now yourself. These classes need this injection and also need you to, bring that mentality also, because it's like, all the chippiness and call outs and stuff in the world, we kind of get tired of seeing the same matchups. You need that fresh blood. So it's been awesome. It's been awesome to see. And I do think that's a class that struggled a couple of years ago, but has found some fresh blood.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough too. Like, I actually had this conversation with Steve Johnson on Thursday of Sonoma. I was just like, he was talking about the call out and some other things. And I just congratulated him on 500 races. But our conversation kind of turned into like Steve and how he is on camera. Like, everybody knows Steve, like he's kind of goofy. And he's kind of out there sometimes, but like there are diehard Steve Johnson fans, out there. And so we were talking about it, and he's like, it's tough when somebody's really like vanilla and politically correct. And I was like, I think you're talking about me there. like that was me. Right. And, we kind of talked about it, and I was just like, I think I can be pretty vanilla. Like, when I go back and listen to my interviews, I'm like, man, I don't even want to watch this, but like my whole thing is like fighting the balance between like my goal is to be someone that like people would see on TV or in an interview and stop by the pit and they get the exact same person. That has always kind of been my goal. And the only way I know how to do that is just to be consistent. Like, it's to be myself, and so we'd kind of talked about that, like that balance between like, how do you make yourself more interesting, in all of this kind of commotion that's going on. And like, I'm not a smack talker really. Like, I enjoy it. Like, I like just kind of sitting there and watching and then going out and doing my thing on the track. But it's just tough. It's like, you want to market yourself, but you also have companies that you represent. And you also want to be consistent across the board when fans actually do come to meet you, and you want to give them a reason to be a Chase VanZant fan.
Well, that's the approach, man. You got to be yourself, and you also have to have you have to have the white hat and the black hat, we call it. So if Steve wants to get out there and be crazy Steve, that's great, but he needs the opposite to play off of, because if everybody was out there acting like Steve Johnson or Matt Smith, it would just be chaos. So you need
and I think that's why
assassin.
But that's why Matt Smith works, because that isn't an act. Like, Matt is being himself. And I think that's why we love him. That's why he has the fan following that he does. That's why he has like all the support on social media that he does. I don't know that it's not because he's outspoken. It's because he's himself. That's who he is.
Oh yeah.
And
if you talk to Matt off camera or in the pits, that's the match you're going to get. And that's the way
I think you're on the right track.
Everybody's genuine in that class. If you ask me, I think we see everyone's genuine nature in that class. And I've always thought that about pro stock motorcycle. And they're also the most visible, that you actually see the rider on the bike. You get a better sense of the person in pro stock motorcycle than I believe any of the other classes.
Well, and I've said for a long time, it's like the pro stock motorcycle. I'm obviously super biased because it's the class I'm involved in, but I think it's one of the coolest because it's like if every funny car out there had the same Toyota body or whatever, it was painted the exact same, and they just made runs, no announcer, nothing, you would have no idea who's in the car ever.
Yeah.
If we all wore identical leathers, identical bikes, looked the same, you could eventually pick out and say like, that's Chase because I know the way he rides, or that's Matt because I know the way he rides that motorcycle. And like, you get to see us make all these small adjustments and all this stuff. And like, I think it brings such a personal thing to it because like the coolest thing that happened to me this year so far was like a kid walked up to me and he's like, you were like at the 1,000 foot and your butt was out of the seat. And I was like, I'm surprised you picked up on
Yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Or you'll
it's
see
cool.
like Matt Smith, I can remember looking over, playing a little bit of a starting line game, and you see him looking
Yeah.
over in the other lane,
Yeah.
rocking the bike back and forth, just doing, and you just see full body motions, you see his head movement,
Yeah.
and then motorcycles, you have kind of the culture of the crazy paint schemes, the outlandish
Yeah.
leathers, the sparkle metallic. You've got Angie with her hair blowing, you get some of that personality that you really,
Which is what we need.
you have to really
Yeah.
know that person in a funny car or in a pro stock car, or they have to really get in there with the camera to show what's going on inside there to get that same kind of personality. So it's definitely something that's there for the taking, and it's good to see you guys leaning into it.
Yeah, I agree. I've got a couple of closing notes here for you, Chase. We've got a comment here, and it was asking if you've ever. I doubt you've ever raced Gage in no bar racing, but have you ever raced like a no bar bike, like a street tire bike?
Yeah. Nothing like as fast as what the Grudge guys are going now. Like those guys, this is just rumors that I've heard. I've heard that like the no bar street tire guys are going into the threes in the 8th mile, which is wild. Like when you look at PDRA and the pro mods are going that, it's like it's crazy. But like the shocks and everything have come a long way. But no, I've ridden some street bike stuff and been in the fours on a street bike. Had some fun, did some no prep and stuff like that. But like wheelie bar and car tire stuff is where like my heart's always been. Like I love that. They're fun. They're a little bit gnarlier in some ways. I mean, the really fast street bike stuff, that's gnarly. Like I don't care who you are. That's absolutely
insane.
It's questionable is what I would call
it. I would use the word questionable
decision.
As well. Questionable decision making. And then secondly, big news over the course of the last few weeks, of course, was Corey Reed, longtime NHRA pro stock motorcycle rider, and another guy who has risked a lot, endured a lot to chase the drag racing dream, making the switch from pro stock bike to pro stock car. Makes his debut in Seattle, goes to the final in his second start. And I'm just curious, like in the context of everything we've just talked about, was it kind of a proud moment for you seeing, like, I don't know how close you are with him, but seeing one of your brethren of pro stock motorcycle go demonstrate that he can do it anywhere? And I mean, and it's inarguable that pro stock cars are some of the most difficult cars there are to drive, especially to drive well. I had Richard Freeman tell me this one time. He said, Wes, anybody can drive a pro stock car, but it takes someone special to do it well, especially to do it well run after run after run. And I think we've now, granted, call it beginner's luck, some good fortune, whatever you may be. He's obviously wrapped in with a good team, KB Titan. He's got great mentors all around him. Greg Anderson leading the charge over there. But it had to be kind of cool to see one of your bike brethren go out and kick ass and take names the way he did, make it to a final round in his second race.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Corey's a good dude. Like, him and Joey have always been really good to me ever since I joined the class, and I've really enjoyed getting to know those guys. They're a good group of people to be around and to know and just fun to talk to. But for Corey, I mean, like, I'm so pumped for him. Like, I just caught a little bit of a glimpse of how hard those cars were to drive. Like, I've talked to Dallas a few times about everything that they have to do from the time that the car starts just till they put it in the stage beams, and I'm like, there's no shot. I'm not coordinated enough, and I couldn't remember all of that. Like, that's way too much going on. So for him to like jump in, and I don't know how many runs he has in the car total now, but to make it to a final, it's like, man, it took me over a year to do that on a bike, and like for him to jump in, I mean, he's a racer. Like, that dude shows up and he knows how to get it done, and on motorcycles or cars, whatever. Like, it's just cool to see him do well, and I really hope he's enjoying it because I love seeing him out there, and he's a good dude to have for any class.
I agree wholeheartedly. Well, Chase, congratulations, brother. Thank you for spending a little bit of time stepping away from the welder. Tell your pops I'm sorry. Get your butt back to work. But we truly appreciate it, man, and we couldn't be happier for you. This is what we want for our Drag Illustrated 30 under 30 guys. These are the reasons we're going. We need young people such as yourself fighting the good fight, continuing to chase the drag racing dream. And I'm glad to see the racing gods reward you, buddy. So congrats, and I guess we'll see you in Indy.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Sounds like a plan, brother.
See you then.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Chase.
Take care, Chase.
See ya.
Man, I love that we have young people. Like, there's so much energy and so many conversations that take place in this sport about everybody being old and gray and it being there's no new fresh blood. Well, I beg to differ, man. I think sometimes you got to look around, you got to be patient because these things don't happen overnight. I mean, we just talked about, Corey Reed having something of some overnight success in door slammer in pro stock racing, but he's been fighting that battle for years and years and years and years and years, and he finally broke through. So it's one of those things that it does require a little bit of patience, but I think our sport is in really good hands right now.
Oh, yeah.
I really do.
It's really cool to see. I saw like a great photo of Joey Gladstone celebrating on the starting line. I think when those guys were going from the semis to the finals, and just knowing what Joey has been through personally as well, and seeing him making that transition, working with the KB team to learn the ropes over there on the door cars, and then seeing Corey do the same thing. That's just kind of a cool story that it kind of needs to be told. It's a little bit swept under the rug, kind of like two best friends that were always into this one deal. Now they've transitioned over to four wheels and having instant success. So really cool to see for both those guys.
Well, hey, man, we've got more work to do. We've got another guest waiting for us in the green room. Longtime friend of ours here at Drag Illustrated. We go way back with this gentleman who has really fought the good fight for our nostalgia-bodied Pro Mod buddies in NHRA. He's been a member of our World Series of Pro Mod fraternity for a hot minute now. Went to the finals of our event in 2018, I believe, out in Denver, Colorado. Let's give it up for the one, the only Doug Winters, who has organized something of, I understand, like a 4-car shootout at Bill Bader's big Night of Fire production coming up at Summit Motorsports Park. I mean, tell us what's the scoop? I mean, you're going to run these things, these Pro Mod cars, you're going to run 1,000 feet, Doug? You're going to piss me off.
Why is that?
No,
will it be the first ever 1,000-foot Pro Mod race? I keep saying that, but I'm not exactly sure if it is or not.
I don't. We'd have to call Brett Kepner.
Somebody text Brett Kepner.
Yeah, we'll
I would say that I'm not aware of any. I honestly, no. I mean, the only time I know of any of these things happen is there was a 1,000-foot drag strip in Arkansas. I'm drawing blank on the name of it, but they raced 1,000-foot every weekend, and this was way before it was fashionable. I mean, this was when I was a kid. I went there with my dad in probably, I don't know, 97, 8, something like that. But I'm not familiar of Pro Mods racing 1,000-foot ever.
No, I'm not either. That's kind of the twist about it all, right? So we came about this as far as getting up with Bill Bader Jr. associated with going to Norwalk. We didn't get to go there with Pro Mods this year. So, wanting on the list for NHRA Pro Mod. So with Blaster being headquartered near Cleveland, we thought it'd be a great opportunity if I could get Bill to agree to let us come up there. And, with his tight schedule, with all the fuel cars and all the jet cars and et cetera, he's really booked for time, but he was willing to have 4 NHRA Pro Mod cars to come up there and compete. And then I said, okay, well, let's put a little twist to it. Let's make it 1,000 feet, something different. That way you won't have to move the timing blocks after the fuel cars run.
Right.
We can just run right behind them. So, or in front of them, in other words. So we think it'd be pretty cool to see what it does associated with. We know what times it should be, right? We get those split times all the time at NHRA, but it'll be really good for the fans to be sitting in the stands and compare our 1,000-foot times to a fuel car and a funny car. So
I'd say that's probably the thing that I like the most about it. And that's probably been one of my biggest, like one of my pain points personally for 1,000-foot racing, because this whole conversation has been like literally beaten to death when it comes to Top Fuel and funny car. Right. And it's clear as day that we're never going back to quarter mile racing, but I have always kind of had a twinge in me when I would go to an NHRA national event and think about our fans, which I think sometimes is not something we collectively as a community think about enough. But I think about just the weirdness of like, okay, these guys are all racing a quarter mile, but those guys are racing 1,000 foot. And it's hard to draw parallels or compare them because
Right.
it's different. And
Right.
so I do think that you're
And also,
perhaps
it's like
onto something.
It's the historical data too. We can't compare that data anymore to what our heroes ran back in the 80s and 90s. So what's a great 1,000-foot pro mod run? What are you looking
Oh,
for out of these
well,
cars to compare them to a quarter-mile run we're seeing on a regular basis?
right. So a good 1,000-foot run will be a 480 something, a 483, 485. A decent run will be in the 490s, low 490s. So, compared to fuel funny cars, sometimes they only run 4.0s. So, it'd be kind of interesting if somebody runs a 4.0 and we run a 480 something. So,
Yeah. What about speed? What are we looking for? 1,000-foot.
who
Trap
knows?
speed.
I mean, we don't, at the NHRA races, they don't have time clocks or mile an hour clocks at the 1,000-foot for us. We only get a ET. So I'm guessing somewhere in the 220s, 230s, maybe. I can estimate what it will be based on the data, and it looks around 230, 232, 234. So from 1,000-foot purposes.
And you're looking at this 1,000-foot deal as a potential proposal or solution for the nostalgia body situation. Talk to us a little bit more about that and how you think that could bring the nostalgia bodies back into play a little bit more.
And please be as candid. I understand that some of this stuff is sensitive, Doug, and everybody, but I would like, I don't know that, again, thinking about our fan base, people want to know the scoop on this. And to set the stage for people that don't perhaps follow door slammer drag racing as closely as we do, there has become quite an evident disparity between some of these body styles, specifically late model Camaros being aerodynamically better considerably than most of these other bodies. And one of your thoughts, I'm assuming, was that this could demonstrate some of that and maybe serve as to create some parity amongst the different body styles, because I would certainly argue that the magic, amongst the many things that contribute to the magic of Pro Modified, are the variety of body styles.
Exactly. And to be competitive in NHRA right now, you need a new style Camaro. It's just point blank. I mean, if you had all the money in the world and needed to build something, it'd be a Pro Charger new style Camaro. Even from the aerodynamics of the Pro Charger and not having a blower sitting up in the front of the hood associated with it. So that's the way to go. So, I mean, now we've got to figure out how to bring the nostalgia back to it. How do we convince guys to build these things so we get more diversity in the class besides just all new style body Camaros? And if I've been doing data for the last 2 years, at one point NHRA was giving us 50 pounds, and then all of a sudden they took 20 pounds away from us and said, this year you're only getting 30 pounds. I go, yeah, we've got a lot of 69 Chevelles out there winning races. So yeah, we need to make sure that we pull them back a little bit.
Yeah, they definitely need to pull those back.
So in doing so, it kind of upset me. So I started doing data research on our time slips associated with everybody other slips in the class, but you had to have a roots car, right? Because it's hard to compare a Pro Charger to even a Pro Charger Chevelle would run better than a Pro Charger roots car. It's just aerodynamically better. And who knows, it may be exponentially better. I don't know. I mean, if you put them in wind tunnels, you need to put them in wind tunnels with the blowers on them, because it may affect the body on a particular style more than it would on another body. So it's hard to compare the two. So what I did was, in my comparison, was take a roots cars, the new style Camaros, 69s, 69 Chevelles, and then I did the data analysis on any time that me or Jericho Baldoff, the other only 69 Chevelle in the NHRA, only times that we would make a good pass, either him or me or both, I would look at all the other cars, roots cars, and compare us to them, that they made a good pass. Now, if they didn't make a good pass, I just throw it out. If we didn't make a good pass, I just throw the run out. That way I had a density, altitude, track temperature. They were all the same for everybody. So you've got to sit there and compare that. And I've done all the analysis, and it looks like from 1,000 foot to a quarter mile, the new style Camaro is worth at least 200s, 0.02. And that's significant. And then if you look at a 69, it's 1 or 2 better as well. It's not as good as the new style Camaro, but it's still a 69 Camaro is maybe 1.5 from 1,000 foot to a quarter mile. So I did all this data, sent it to NHRA. They're analyzing it, quote unquote. And, we're just seeing now if that will make a difference. So it'll be really interesting. And we know the data. I can look at like Dwayne Wolf. He's going to be there. Great running Roots car, new style Camaro, beautiful car. So it'll be interesting to see him on a good pass and me on a good pass where we line up at the 1,000-foot mark. And according to my data, it's going to be pretty close. But we'll see how it turns out.
Do you think that is like, there's a handful of ways to address this, right? I mean, one of the ways that you mentioned was providing some sort of weight break. What's your take on like the NHRA's perspective, or do you feel, because I'm with you, I feel like we should be doing virtually anything we can, until it becomes a
go
problem.
Over center. Go over center. And
go
let
over
the Doug
center.
Winners go out there and win a race, and then start backing it up.
It's like Tony. It's like Tony Wilson with his 55. We should be giving him 150 pounds. How as light as you can get that thing to go, and I want to see it number one qualifier and go to the finals,
right.
And then start going backwards from that. But for some reason, we've got this attitude that NHRA does that kind of want to keep the playing field level all through the season, all through the countdowns and all this stuff. And it's kind of hard to do to get them to move off of that.
Well, I just know that like knowing racers, unless it is plain as day advantageous, they're not going to run that risk. And that's the thing, is that there has to be some sort of, and this is, I think, the problem. The communication breaks down. Everybody's kind of serving different masters, and justifiably, right? Like NHRA's got their reasons, race teams have their reasons. I understand that. But I do think some open conversation about, hey, it is clear as day that we have something really special happening in pro modified style drag racing right now. I mean, if you really think about it, over the 40 years, what have you, this is a class that has almost always continued to grow. Now, I mean, at one point in time, we had IHRA running pro mod, NHRA running pro mod. But we have, these cars are being raced at a high level in a lot of different places. I feel like the NHRA Pro Mod series has been rebirthed. It's got a new life that I think a lot of people were kind of writing it off, that deal was about to go the way of the dodo. But it is back, and I would say damn near as good as it's ever been. Right around. And I do think some conversation about how can we maintain this, because I also feel bad for the racer that's not willing to take that chance to build a 55 Chevy, or to build a 69 Chevelle, or to have a body made of some other car, a 41 Willys, whatever the case may be.
Well, it's all become like interchangeable. And these guys want to build these cars. They want to build me a black late model 69 Camaro, or a late model Camaro, or a 69 Camaro, so that I can sell it when it's done, and I'll get me a new one next year. And no one else is out there building a Chevelle or a 55 Chevy, something that's unique and personable to them. And that, resale value be damned, this is the car I'm going to have, and this is what I want. We've lost that as well. The original pro mod guys, I mean, Doug, this, you had a 55, and everybody had their signature car, and you kept it, you raced it for a while, and then you didn't really focus on what's the resale market of this thing going to be or whatever. Now these guys build these cars. They want to make it as generic as possible and as broadly appealing as possible, so that when they sell it, it's got as much resale value as possible, and they go to the next thing. And just, we've lost that. And I know that's not NHRA's intent, but what their approach to the rules and lack of doing something for the nostalgia bodies has created that kind of atmosphere in this class. And to me, I can't blame the racer. If I had the money and I'm going to build a car right now, I'm building a late model Camaro, probably painting it black and then wrapping it so that I can unwrap it and sell it to whoever I want. But that is exactly the opposite of what the founding of Pro Mod was based upon. And you were there for that. I think a lot of people don't remember that or quite give you credit for that.
I think fail to realize that
for as long as any of these guys. And so you can speak to that as well. We've lost whatever that is. I don't know what the word is that I would use to describe it, but you've lost that, cowboy individuality that it takes to build a car like that. And everyone's going this same path. So I don't know what it's going to take. I applaud you for building a Chevelle and then even exploring this 1,000-foot deal. And I'm very curious to see exactly how it works out and how those numbers are going to play out.
Yeah, because NHRA, they are up against a stop. I mean, we got you got to add weight if you have a Pro Charger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And et cetera, et cetera. So you get up to that SFI limit, right? Of 20, whatever it is, 2,800,
2,800, 2,850 or 2,900. I forget what it is. But
you're bumping up against a stop. So the only thing you can do is take weight from the other cars. And then we have a problem. I was at 50 pounds. I got 50 pounds out of the car pretty easy, but anything more than 50 pounds, I'm going to have a hard time doing it unless I get on that treadmill behind me there and start running some more. But we're going to have a hard time.
You can't lose much weight, man.
You can't lose much more weight.
So we're going to have a hard time anything less than 50. So they're up against that stop. So, it's some way we need to work it out to where we can take advantage of the weight, and the NHRA provide that advantage of the weight, and then start adding it back on to that. Like you said, Mike, if we get to a point to where we're exceeding everybody else.
Well, there's also some stuff they can do with some aerodynamic stuff. I know they've explored that. There's some wind tunnel testing going on. And I'm hoping that maybe there's something there as well, in addition to the weight, because weight is not the only answer. Like we faced that at World Series of Pro Mod. How do we balance out all these combinations? And it just ends up being primarily weight. But I would love to find different ways that we could bring those weights back, so we don't have our Pro Charger and our screw blown cars running right up against that SFI limit, and we can and turbos especially, so that we can bring those back and have more cushion to play with on those weights as things change. Because if the turbo combination keeps advancing right now, or the screw blown combination, we're out of weight. We can't add more weight to those guys. Then what are we going to do? Because we can't take weight away from the nitrous guys. So it's going to get to a point soon where we're going to have to find something else besides weight to equalize these cars.
Well, and Pro Chargers, for one, I mean, you can easily change the overdrive associated, not easily, but they can make a rule adjustment to slow down the overdrive. But everybody complains, and I understand they spend all this money for testing. You got to start over. But it is what it is. If we could go ahead and make a rule in the end of the season and give everybody a whole off season to get ready for it, and the try to level the playing field from a performance standpoint. But also, like I said, the body plays a portion in too. I hate to get so complicated to have, you've got a 69 Roots car. This is your weight, right? And this is your overdrive. Oh, you've got a new style Camaro with a Pro Charger. This is your overdrive for your Pro Charger. And this is a weight. I mean, I know it's going to get really complicated, and the NHRA obviously don't want to do that from that perspective based on combination and body.
And I think manpower to try to police it becomes a whole issue as well.
Yeah.
I just think of some conversation about where we want this thing to be 3, 5, 10 years from now. And I think sometimes that we as a community are so laser focused on just getting to the next race that we kind of fail to take the time to really think about where we want all this stuff to be in the foreseeable future. And I do get very concerned about a world where, and now granted, we've heard this before. Mike and I were joking this morning that I remember when everybody who had a 63 Corvette and everybody was up in arms, and all the top cars in IHRA were going to 63 Corvettes. And oh my God, this is just going to be a 63 Corvette class. And then it changes. But we're in a new world now, right? The cars are $300,000 rolling. Right? Without a drivetrain in them, they're $300,000. I mean, this whole thing has reached kind of a new level of seriousness. And I do think we need to have some conversations about where we want this thing to end up 3 to 5 years from now. And I know we don't want alcohol funny car with doors. I mean, you don't have to look at alcohol funny car racing right now to see that it's kind of lost some of that. It's sizzle. It's lost some of those characteristics, and it's all the cars are very similar. All the combinations are very similar, and we've got to be mindful of that, or we're going to find ourselves there at some point in the relatively near future. I'm afraid, but I also understand it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'll give you one example. Right, Virginia, I didn't qualify. We went up there the last Q4 session, and Stan was behind me, Stan Shelton, and a new style Mustang. Let's don't count them out as well. I mean, they look just as aerodynamic as a new style Camaro.
Yeah, I think they're twins, basically.
Yeah. I mean, he's parked behind me, right? And it looks like that I can take both hands and reach across the front end of that thing. And I'm my Chevelle, I'm stretching arms, and I still can't reach headlight to headlight. I mean, it's just crazy the way you look at them. But we did our run. I got a little loose, but I stupidly held down the car and made a run at 586 or something. I don't remember what it was. I missed the bump and got the data. Well, Stan comes down right behind me. He didn't qualify either. He actually running 590 or something. It's a little slower than me. We got back to the pits, and they bring the data around. That's the sheets, the breakdown sheets. You can look and see what everybody's was. He back half me 300ths more and still went slower than I did. I mean, I had him at the 8th mile by 3 or 400ths. But I mean, yeah, more than that, 500ths. But on the back half, he caught up 300ths on me, even though I was going faster at the 8th mile. And that's got to clearly show you that if a Roots Mustang has better aerodynamics from an 8th mile to a quarter mile than a 69 Chevelle does. I mean, I know maybe somebody could say, well, they've just got a better tune-up than I do. But I mean, come on, from that perspective of him doing the best he can and not qualifying, and me doing the best I can and not qualifying, and him still gain 300ths on the top end when I had him at the 8th mile, it ain't right. Something's wrong somewhere.
It's hard to argue, man. I mean, I understand that perspective as well. That's like, hey, you know, and we just had this whole conversation with Chase VanZant about, you know, pro stock motorcycle, you know, people being forced to kind of elevate their program. And I think that's happened in pro mod. All of this stuff continues. The professionalism continues to increase. The maintenance programs continue to improve. The manpower that's involved with these teams. I was having a conversation with a racer this morning talking about how much hired help he flies in, because it's not like it was when he started racing, you know, that it used to be a couple of buddies getting together, brothers, whatever, going out and drag racing. And now you're flying in a tuner, you're flying in a shot guy, you're flying in, you know, it's really, really, we're in a whole new world, right, Doug? Yep. I mean, it's a whole new world for this stuff, but it's exciting. And I think that part of it is just knowing where we want to go. And I think that being committed to that pro modified. I mean, if you pull up NHRA's rule book and you read the definition or the explanation or description that they have for pro modified, it's rooted in a variety of different cars with a variety of different engine combinations competing on the same quarter mile against one another. And that's the magic of this. And I think we got to be mindful that that's where this whole deal is rooted, and we can't get lost. Like, that's how I feel about nitrous racing. You know, JT battles Mike and I constantly, like, hey, if they can't keep up, they can't keep up. Let them go away. And I'm like, no, the magic of this whole deal is keeping all these combinations in the mix, because kind of what Chase was saying as well is taking some heat every once in a while for being kind of vanilla and plain spoke, you know, clean cut and prim and proper. A lot of times we don't necessarily have a driver that it has the personality. So we need the car to fill that void. Like, we need the car to kind of be representative of his personality or his style or the way he's trying to go racing. And to see that all go away, like, the last thing we need is a bunch of deaf mutes behind the wheel of pro-charged Camaro, 2024 Camaros. I mean, and it could be that pretty quick.
What's Tim McCamus' famous saying? If I could get a monkey to do a burnout, I could have a pro mod driver.
Window lickers. I think it's what his favorite.
Which,
his
you know,
favorite
and
term.
I've actually never agreed with, because it always pissed me off whenever I saw that video, because I'm like, hey man, pro mod drivers are my hero. I mean, look at my wall. That's Shannon Jenkins. That's Shannon Jenkins. You know, like, pro mod racers are my heroes. Don't be talking bad about my boys and girls here. These are the baddest sons of bitches ever to walk the earth, as far as I'm concerned. And I think the courage alone to get in a 2,750-pound door car and make a 250-mile-an-hour run, it makes you a hero or a legend in my eyes from day one, just to be willing to do it. I do understand it.
I still think we need a clutch and to manually shift the thing. I mean, hands off to Mike Janik. He's going to be there with me at the Night Under Fire, and he's still got a clutch in that thing, new style Corvette. And, you know, can it be faster? Would it be faster? Yes. I mean, it's a lot more trouble, but I mean, it's an option for you to do it, but it's just so hard to do between rounds on the clutch. But if everybody had to do it, you know, I'd be right there doing it with them, because I used to do that all the time. I remember many a times jumping in the passenger seat and setting the clutch on the way to the staging lines, making sure it's squared up and got enough air gap. You know, so that was the good old days. But nowadays,
add some counterweight when the car in front of you is in the water box. We did that many times. How quickly can you get that cover on and off of that clutch can? Well, you talk about some anxiety. Don't drop a bolt down in the clutch.
I've dropped the bolt. I've dropped bolts in them before, and you get back, and it looks like somebody shot the inside of the bell housing where it threw it around a bunch of times. But
yeah, those are the days, man. What will you do though if NHRA doesn't do anything and it continues on the way it is? Would you look at 8th mile racing? I mean, I know you've done some of that and have like back in the Carolina Extreme Pro Mod days and some of the smaller series. You've always kind of raced around the area here, 8th mile. But I know you see a lot of marketing value and have had success with marketing partners on the NHRA stage. So
Yeah,
which I'm sure is driving the bus on
Yeah.
going to the night of fire.
It is.
right.
Yeah, I'm gonna quote Wes. I'm still gonna fight the good fight associated with
Yeah.
NHRA, and it's not only just from a perspective of still trying to make it right. It's a challenge. I mean, it's really, really a challenge when you show up with 25 plus cars that are all capable. There's no ducks out there, all capable of qualifying. So from that perspective, one, being a part of the show associated with NHRA from a marketing perspective, thank goodness Blaster is helping us out this year to do that. And we invite customers out to the track, and they not only get to see us run and go to the starting line with us, but they also see Jack Beckman and Ron Capps and Cruz and all those guys run and watch them have part of the circus, I call it. But, from that standpoint, from the marketing and the challenge associated with it, it's going to be NHRA's, but I'll just have to keep bitching, I guess.
Hey, keep doing it, man. We'll back you up because we need. There's very precious few guys like you still out there that are willing to do that. So they need to make the change, I think, before it completely runs you off or makes you have to switch gears.
At one time, I threatened to build a new Camaro. This back when Meritor and Steiner was with me, and the funds were a lot better in the bank account. And I told NHRA I'm going to build a new style Camaro. And they're like, no, don't do that. And I go, well, you got to help me out here somewhat. And that's when they gave me the 50 pounds. But then this year they took 20 of it away. So for some reason, I'm not still sure.
I will never figure that out. So who else besides you? You mentioned Nick Janik, you mentioned Dwayne Wolf, and then who else you got going to the Night of Fire with you this weekend?
Yeah, so we got Dwayne Wolf, as I mentioned, too. So it's Nick Janik, Dwayne Wolf, myself, and a newcomer, Steve Easton. He's got a 63 Corvette that I think it was Dana Parisi's old car that he runs in NMNCA and stuff. They're trying to get ready to run NHRA, so it's a good test for them as well, and a good test for them at 1,000 foot instead of trying to run a full quarter mile on that thing. So, we got diverse body styles. I got a 63 Corvette, and I got a new style Corvette, and I got a new style Camaro and a 69 Chevelle. So we got diversity here associated with the Night of Fire. I know. So
what are you guys running like what style format race as far as how many runs you guys going to make? And
right. Yeah.
So going to be a batch race or what?
Yeah. So based on the schedule, we were going to have what we call in Q1 on Friday afternoon, and then Saturday morning at noon, we're going to have Q2. And then just like his format with his fuel cars and his nitro cars, one's going to run 4, two's going to run 3, and then we'll come back and the 2 winners run each other and 2 losers will run each other. So we'll have a 1st through 4 finish associated with the end of it there. So it's going to be a kind of a alternate match race, if you will.
Have you been a part or been to Bill Bader's Night of Fire in the past?
No, and I'm really looking forward to it. Have you guys been there?
Yeah, man.
Not for the Night of Fire. I haven't.
Well, what Bill Bader Jr. has created with this event is there are very few events like it in our sport. And I look up to Bill, and I think what they do at Summit Motorsports Park, their dedication to their fans and the fan experience and putting on a show and being an entertainment company as much as a sanction or a race series or an event venue. It's a pretty magical thing, man. And I think it's a good move, and it's a great opportunity for pro modified drag racing just in general to be on that stage and maybe pique some curiosity amongst the fans, because you're talking tens of thousands of people that show up for a one-night show, essentially. I think it's a pretty amazing thing, and I'm glad that you're going to be a part of it, to be honest.
Yeah, and by the way, he just sent me this thing. It says he's spending $125,000 in fireworks. So the fireworks budget is out the roof.
Yeah, the fireworks show, all of our photographers always come back with incredible shots of those fireworks we always run. One of those fireworks shots never fails to make it into our photo annual issue
he's got 4 fuel cars, 4 funny cars, 2 jet trucks, 4 jet dragsters, 4 jet funny cars, 4 top fuel Harleys, us, 2 wheel standards, and then top sportsman, alcohol, and alcohol funny car. So it's quite a show.
Man, I love this format, and I talked about it right here on this very program about 3 weeks ago with Scott Palmer. I'm just kind of started using the program right here on this program.
Bringing that back.
But bringing that back. But Scott Palmer and Alex Laughlin, I think there's a future in the sport of drag racing for these match race style events where it's not so much about having 38 pro mods trying to qualify for 16 spots. It's having 4 badass ones. Making 3 guaranteed runs. And I think that I think there's going to be more of this in the future. I really do.
when I was talking to Bill about doing this, he's like, it's a show. This is a show. Performers, Bill, I got you. I grew up in the Super Chevy days, and Roger Gustin's, believe me, I know he used to tell us it's not a drag race, it's the Super Chevy show. And so I said, I understand where you're coming from, and I get it.
No, and you're a perfect fit for it, man. I better see you leg that thing out. I need to see some burnouts, because this ain't no qualifying for NHRA, whatever. This is go sacrifice it all, right, to put on a show. And those are the conversations I have with racers. Hey, man, those hides better be boiling going by.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that sign behind the water box at Norwalk? Isn't that a Blaster?
Oh yeah,
sign?
It's the Blaster logo. They're a sponsor of the track as well. So
you're gonna have some good weekend. A hero card shot is coming from this.
Yeah,
for Doug Winters.
So hero card shot.
And that was Super Chevy's, Roger's gimmick as well. It's like, I want to see long burnouts and side-by-side runs. I don't care if you both are going 680s. As long as you're side-by-side and do long burnouts and get down the track and come around for next round, then you're okay in my book.
Man, the Super Chevy 100%. Deal in the 90s was awesome. And the Sunoco shootout, it was all good till they went to those damn nitro coupes.
Hey, that's where I made my living out there for a while.
Well, real quick, will you tell it? Like,
my dad was so mad when they made that change. I mean, they basically told him, "Sorry, your nitrous car doesn't fit here anymore. We're going to nitro coupes." He never forgave him for that.
What a great name, though, nitro coupe.
Yeah.
Pretty. Yeah. I mean, great name for a class. What did that look like, Doug? Like, so what was the arrangement with like the teams? Were you getting appearance money? Like, how did that work? Racing for a purse on top of appearance money, or how did that work?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Roger used to tell us, we used to, complain and bitch that wasn't enough money, and he'd be like, "This is the best show in drag racing. This is the best thing you can ever do." And he was right. Looking back on the days, we got a flat rate. I don't remember what it was, like 2,500 or something flat rate. Just to do you had to at least do 3 runs, the 2 qualifyings and at least the eliminations on Sunday, and then some money on top of that if you went to the final round or even won the race. So it was a good deal. I mean, we made a lot of money associated with it. We sold a lot of T-shirts, did a lot of stuff outside. And I was telling somebody the other day, I said we were before our time. We had a ESPN show with Brett Kepner. A half hour before social media was out there, we'd be the street outlaws nowadays. Back that, if it was now,
that drove a lot of the popularity of Pro Mod in the early days, and yeah, it is akin to the street outlaws deal. I would agree with that. They had shows on multiple channels. I think the TNN had it. The whole Diamond P deal for a while. Yeah. They had some really top level production with that deal. I think at the time, everyone looks back to the IHRA situation and its formation in 1990 as being the birth of Pro Mod, but that Super Chevy deal was kind of running alongside it, giving it a run for its money, and had a lot of heavy hitters, and there was a lot of money behind that deal back in the day.
Yeah, when we luckily got into it, and I did because of Jim Oddie built our first blower motor, right? And he was a part of it with Fred Hahn. So, it was Fred Hahn, Bill Coleman, Jeff Brozowicz, Gray Tech, and I got in there and was lucky enough. And they said, okay, you've got to at least burn some nitro to make it smell like nitro. And so I remember very vividly the first race, we're dumping 3% in there, only 3%, and nobody could breathe. I mean, it's like you're running out of the pits. You can't breathe. And then at the end, we're dumping 30% going, is this all we can do? Is 30% all we can do?
I was going to say, Coleman's over there. He's got as much as that thing will
So we tried.
And he had that bad fire in that deal too, so if you guys remember that.
Oh, yeah. We all tried to creep up on it from 3% to, 6%. Coleman's over there dumping 30% out and going out and blowing the motor up, coming back, putting another motor in it, going 30%, blowing it up again. He'd go through 3 or 4 motors a weekend at 30%, just trying to figure it out from that perspective. But
yeah, he's a maniac, man. I remember he always was pushing the envelope, and he, first 200 and was at the forefront of performance back in those days for sure. But yeah, any crazy idea that he could come up with or anyone else, he was going to do it.
Yeah. So at one race, I'll get off here, but real quick, we were Epping, New Hampshire, and I qualified number 1, right? So I'm up against Fred Hahn and Bill Coleman. We didn't know what we were doing, but we hit upon we found out that nitro, it really didn't like the low percentage. It would beat the crap out of the bearings at low percentages. And then you get into the teens and it started getting happy and it wanted more and more. But in the low percentages, you're just wasting time and beating up stuff. But we hit on a lucky combination at the time, around 15 to 16%. I went out there and Epping was number one qualifier. I think it was Epping. But anyway, came back. We end up, I think, got in the final round. Show's over with. We're waiting for the next race. And I had found out that those guys were making more money than me because, you know, they're making more. And so I went up to Roger after the show and said, you know, what about me? You know, I'm number one qualifier here. You went to the finals. I have never got such a reaming in my life. I mean, he went all over me. He was like, I'll pay you what you're worth. You're not worth la-di-da-da-da. And go, yes, sir. He said, you can not come back if you want to. This is what you're getting paid. And I said, yes, sir. And I walked away.
Well, I got to tell you, man, like that type of arrangement, like that's what I want. Like we'll get there eventually. It's going to take some time. But like I told Mike, like, I want to get to a point where we're able to pay everybody, like pay our guys, pay our top talent. Like right now we lean into putting a huge purse out there and using that to make sure that there's a big reward and it's oftentimes spread around. Right. And I love seeing that. I love the winner take all connotation. Right. And I love the energy and excitement that it generates. But, you know, you try to make sure that everybody's taken care of in as many different ways as you can. But that's my ultimate goal for the sport of drag racing is I think about, you know, the stars of NHRA's Top Fuel and Funny Car classes showing up and hoping to qualify in order to earn $1, you know, and that is, we have to, I mean, collectively as a community, as a group, as a sport, we've got to right that. We have to right the ship. At some point, we have to find a way to either provide enough value to a sponsor, sell media rights to a streaming partner, you know, be that a huge brand, you know, an ESPN, a Fox, or maybe it's, you know, an indie brand, so to speak, as an endemic brand like Flow Racing, et cetera. We've got to get to a point where we're garnering enough eyeballs that we're able to generate enough revenue to take care of our teams and make this a little bit more manageable. Because right now we are basically, you're so reliant on just the good nature of the drag racing community at these guys, and that there are Doug winners out there that maybe are at a performance disadvantage, but they love it so much and are so passionate about it that they're going to continue beating their heads against the wall and doing it anyways. And it's like, if we want to grow and attract new people and get people excited about, you know, becoming a professional drag racer, we've got to find a way for there to be some damn money in it. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the situation is we've got to find a way for there to be some money in it for these guys and gals. And if it's the last thing I do, we will get there. I promise.
We're working on it.
We're working on it, man.
And like any form of racing, I mean, it's going to take corporate sponsorships, right? So from a perspective of not only the tracks and the races, but the racers themselves. So they got to see that investment be worth the value that they get out of it. So it's just, we're still trying to do it as well. I mean, I work every day trying to make sure that our customers and sponsors get the value that they expect from us.
100%, man. Well, Doug, we're happy for you. We're excited for you. I can't wait to see you. I'm assuming we'll also see you at the U.S. Nationals. So
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Not 100% sure right now.
Okay. Well, keep us posted and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Best of luck. Congrats. And keep that thing 1969 or later, please.
We'll do it. And yeah, come on out to the Night Under Fire. It should be a good show if you're around the Norwalk area.
Yeah, the whole world will be there, I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Good luck, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks
Doug.
Guys.
See ya.
What's up, Michael? I don't know what to make of it. Like the whole time we're having that conversation, I'm going, I also understand NHRA's perspective. Like I really do. And you can't cave to every, you know, but I really do think that there is a valid argument to be made about doing something, like you said, going over center.
Well,
perhaps.
we saw that anytime they've introduced a new combination. I know I always go back to this, but the turbos, they just kind of let them in, like do whatever. And then they started to really find that combination and they had to back them down. And I just think that we wouldn't even have to go that far, but yeah, do something to encourage that diversity. Otherwise, we're just going to end up, I think Alcohol Funny Car is a little bit of a cautionary tale as well. What's happened with that class? Obviously, it's happened with Pro Stock, Pro Camaro, as everyone wants to call it. We got to do something. You can't let racers determine this. That's where the third party or the neutral party, the promoter, the sanctioning body has to step in and, reel them back in. You can't let the inmates run the asylum, like we like to say, or everything is going to be there. No racer is going to go out there like what Doug was describing and knowing that even if they make their best run, they're 2 numbers, 3 numbers, 4 numbers behind another car that they could have built for the same money, just as a different shape. And that guy makes his best effort and is 4 numbers ahead. No racer in their right mind in this world of data, in this world of knowledge. When these guys were building these cars back in the day, and even back to like the match racing fuel days, these guys, they were learning, they were figuring out, building stuff themselves. Everything was a one-off, and you honestly didn't either know or care that your, Studebaker was this much slower than this car, or this 55 or 57 or Willys or whatever. You did it because that's what you loved. That's what, your family had. That's what, some connection to your past. And that was like the spirit or whatever you wanted to bring to the show. And
it adds depth to the story. I mean, like I said, I think, recognizing that drag racing is not necessarily pro wrestling. These competitors, they're race car drivers, and it's much different than being like, if you aspire to be a pro wrestler or whatever, you go in knowing that like the gift of gab and being able to do an interview or to cut a promo, like that's just as important as being able to suplex somebody, right? In drag racing, that's not really the case, but we need that part of it. And I think that we will get there over time, especially in this social media age that we live in. And it's easier to share your story or share your personality, but it's like, we really do need those cars to add depth and add complexity to the story and to make this thing interesting and to get people to take sides and pick favorites, because that's the magic of Pro Mod, in my opinion, is there's still cars that look like cars. I mean, that's what I hear every time.
Too much data now. And even that sheet that they bring around,
no joke.
That's kind of a double-edged sword.
I agree.
That allows everyone to have that data and see it. We didn't have that. We didn't know. And you just kind of, I don't know, picked at it, and you just gained some, lost some, but now no one's given up that difference. And they're looking at those splits, or looking at those back half splits. They're looking at everything. And I
think that's the downfall of the time slip app. I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago on this very program, Jason Terrell from Tin Soldiers Race Car was talking about how
we stay program.
I think it's an interesting thing because everybody knows what everybody else stuff does from the starting line to the traps. And you do get a lot more conversations about this type of thing going, instead of just going out there and, running your best rate. You're more worried like, hey, that guy's 3 numbers better than us at the 330. We need to figure that out. And I mean, it's a good thing and bad. It's a double-edged sword, as so many things.
I think Chase talked about that too, did he not? About that, bringing around the numbers. Doug mentioned that. I do think that maybe that's where we need to start to look at that. Don't publish that sheet. Maybe that's just for internal use only. Racers are going to kill me. My email inbox is probably going to melt down. But
I don't know, man. I think a case can be made for it. It's just like turning the scoreboards off.
Yeah,
I think the reason
racers hate that too. We know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. Mike Poland's in the comments. They all lie on the numbers anyways. First rule of racing, lie. Yeah. It's Ric Flair said it best. Is he's a spiritual mentor of mine, Ric Flair. Win if you can, lose if you have to, but no matter what, always cheat. That was Ric Flair. That was Ric Flair's go-to line. Yeah. And
a lot of early drag racing was based on that. Hey,
it really was, man.
We've talked about these bodies though. Do you think that one thing I've noticed is No Prep Kings has a more diverse body style selection going on over there? And is that because these cars are steel roof and quarters, because guys are kind of known for one car or another?
I mean, look at Kai Kelly just bringing out another third gen Camaro,
bringing out a third gen Camaro. I'm thinking of Lexuses. You got Swanstrom in a Lexus, or Daddy Dave in another Audi. You got that Audi. These guys, there's a lot of 69 Camaros and there's a lot of late model Camaros over there, but you do have more diversity than you see in other door car classes. But what does that class have? No scoreboards, no time slip, guys that are trying to bring personality to the deal. All the stuff that Pro Mod was originally built on, they're still embracing that over there. And I hope that they never get away from that. Whereas actual Pro Mod racing has kind of left that in the dust.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. Let's before we wrap up today, Mike, let's do some just rapid fire thing. If anybody in the comments has any questions you'd like us to answer, I did see somebody asking if that's Lyle Barnett on my shirt. Yep, this is a Racers Club limited edition. Shout out to Josh Dixon.
So limited
and the squad.
It's the only one in existence, and only
no. There's like 10 of them. There's 10 of them.
Okay.
There's probably 10 of them in existence. But yeah, man, this was one of our early samples that we did. I wore it to PRI back in December, but. One thing that I just want to touch on, and like I said, if anybody has any questions, comments, or anything you'd like us to address, we'd love to hear from you. Throw it into the comments. But I just want to use this as a quick opportunity. What's your take on Jack Beckman as the fill-in for John Force? Like, is that who you expected? What's your take on that? What do you think of the reaction? It does seem like it's been overwhelmingly positive. Great to see Jack back in action. But what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, he's got history with the crew chief or co-crew chief and some of the team there. And I mean, who else could you get that stays in shape, is licensed, stays active with the sport? We just had him at the Pro Superstar Shootout announcing that event. So he's been lurking around, and I think that it's a great fit. He's another polarizing personality that we've missed in the sport. A lot of guys love or hate Jack. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Bazemore back in the day, where, you know, highly successful, goes out there, but is also not afraid to speak his mind, give an interview. So polarizing in that regard. And I think it's a great fit, and we'll see. I guess my only question is, for how long is this? And I know that no one has that answer yet. I guess it's for at least the rest of the season. But you know, we'll see what comes after that. And if this is a more permanent move, or if, you know, we get more info on John's condition.
I'm anxious. I think you're right. I don't know that there were a whole lot. I do think that there were some capable guys and gals.
I mean, they did call me, I guess. You know, I was waiting on a call, but.
Well, I figured they'd pick you. I actually thought JT would get the call. Yeah. If anybody in our group was going to get the call, I figured they'd call up Murder Tundra and say, hey, man, you've been driving those 4-wheel drive trucks off-road, through ditches, barrel rolling them. You know, you're perfect. You're tailor-made for a funny car. But actually,
I'll say the one drag car I will never get in is a nitro funny car. I'm gonna just go ahead and tell you that.
I'll drive
those things.
That's right now.
I'm claustrophobic, and you put me in one of those bad boys. Lower that body down. We had Matt Hagan talking about tethering the bodies and his take on it, and how much that even bothered him. I was like, yeah, dude, that's not for me. That's the one car I would not want to be in.
It's sketchy business. I was wondering if we wanted to see Jordan Vandergriff. I had heard some rumblings that Tommy Johnson Jr. was in the mix. He's another guy that stayed like kind of on the peripheral of our sport, stayed involved. But it's great to see Jack back out here. I think about someone like Jack Beckman not drag racing after all that he's achieved, the story that he has, beating cancer, teaching other people to drive at Frank Hawley's drag racing school, winning a world championship, becoming that polarizing, but largely a fan favorite. I mean, people love Jack Beckman. I mean, Fast Jack, he's a real character and a personality out here. And that's when I get pissy, because I think about people like him sitting on the sidelines and not having a ride. That's hard for me to wrap my head around. So I think it's great news to see him back in action. I see Bobby Cottrell, Jeff Arend. I was almost wondering if we wouldn't see someone get this big opportunity to move up from the funny car chaoses of the world, or, you know, Bakersfield March Meet events of the world, go from Nostalgia Nitro up into this rate. But you also, I think, through the lens of John Force Racing and through the lens of Peak Antifreeze, and I'm obviously not speaking for these people, but you think about someone who can tick all the boxes. This is somebody who can engage with fans. He can do the interviews. He can do the corporate hospitality. He can handle the social media scrutiny and be active on those platforms. There's a lot of different things that you have to consider that go beyond whether or not this guy or gal can drive the car. And I think Jack ticks all those boxes. So it's probably a pretty logical conclusion. I will tell you, it's a real trip seeing Jack in John's fire suit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a real, I don't know that I was ready for that. Like just the replacement, knowing that this is a replacement. And again, we don't know how long this lasts. We don't know what the plans are for the future, but it really was kind of a sober, as exciting as it was to know that that car is going to be back on track, as exciting as it was to know that Jack Beckman's back behind the wheel. There's still this kind of like, oh, it also means that John Force is not going to be there.
I know.
You know, and there's a great comment here from Drag Racing Mayhem that says, I'm going to actually throw it on the screen. JT normally does that. I don't know how to do it. There we go. It's sad our sport doesn't have the feeder system to really produce talent in the top levels. Most don't want to or can't move up despite being insanely talented. And I think that that's a really true statement. And I'll be honest, like in our pursuit and as we move forward and continue to develop pro modified drag racing, and I mean, it is my goal to, when I put that on social media last night, I meant it. If I had a stack of Top Fuel and funny cars, I would still go buy a pro mod. If I am an NHRA top tier pro team, whatever, I would have a pro mod in my stable because of what I think the future looks like. I truly believe pro modified is the universal language of our sport, and it is 100% our pathway to the future. Cars that look like cars, they're freaking full size Hot Wheels. We run them heads up. They go 250 miles an hour. We haven't reached that threshold of blowing up engines after every run. We have to be mindful of that, protect this group of people from themselves, and not let the performance get so out of control that that's where we arrive, where these things are all disposable. The engines are disposable and everything's disposable. We can't allow it to get there. But I think Pro Mod is a place where that feeder system can exist, where you can have top tier events. You can have the World Series of Pro Mod. You can have these major happenings. Jim Halsey's events at Cecil County. I mean, his 50,000 to win race earlier this year, the 50,000 to win Pro Mod shootout that they've added to the Yellow Bullet Nationals, the Snowbird Outlaw Nationals, U.S. Street Nationals, these big independent promotions, the shakedown that's getting ready to happen in September at Flying H Drag Strip, Keith Haney and Scott Higgs and Mark Mickey's big production that will be part of the Midwest Drag Racing Series. Like, there's a lot of places to go earn your stripes in Pro Mod right now. And I think that's kind of the magic of it. That's why the class is as healthy as it is because there's a lot of places to go race, get your feet wet, develop, learn how to race at a high level, learn how to be a part of a show and turn your program around quickly. I think this is 100% the pathway to the future.
Just like Cole Trickle,
no doubt.
Helping Rowdy win, man. It's just the same thing.
I've heard more Days of Thunder references in the last 24 hours than I have in the last 24 years. You know,
what a great movie!
What a great movie.
Hey,
well,
also,
dude,
I saw Jolie Stanfield in here. She wants the link to some Racer Club swag. We got to get that to her. But I also want to give a shout out, Aaron Stanfield. Man, this guy. I was just confirming some of the results from the last few races. 3 out of the last 5, I believe, Aaron Stanfield has won. I think Jed Coughlin Jr. won the other 2. So between those 2 guys, they've been just racking up wins here through the summer. So I want to give a shout out to those guys as well. Don't forget to acknowledge the success he's having over there. That's a hell of a deal. And we also got PDRA this weekend. US 131.
I love the PDRA and Martin, Michigan, man. This is one of those events where you're pairing this highly established, fantastic racing sanction, the PDRA,
4, he says,
with Jolie Stanfield. Yeah. I love seeing the PDRA being able to race at an event that is going to be packed out. Like getting to see these racers race in front of a big stands full of fans. It's very exciting. I think that it's a great fit. I love the size of US 131. Like, it's a big place and it's a beautiful world-class facility, but it's not a massive venue that it takes tens and tens and tens of thousands of people to make look significant. I'm genuinely excited for him. I think this is going to be a great weekend for the PDRA. Nate is rolling out tomorrow morning, I believe, making the drive from Indy over to
PDRA live
Martin
tonight.
They got
Stay
PDRA live
tuned
tonight,
later
7 p.m. Nate and the boys, Nate, Kyle, Chris, Scotty Gore, Tyler Crossno will be on there making their picks. I normally chime in the comments and make my picks. I'm going Jason Harris. I think Jason needed that breakthrough win a couple of weeks ago. No, but I was just deciding to make my pick right now. When I think of Pro Boost, I'm thinking Jason Harris in Party Time is going to rock and roll kick like Ted Nugent, just rock and roll kick all these guys. And I think Jim Halsey gets back to his winning ways. That's kind of I'm going to pick Pro Boost and Pro Nitrous right now. And I'd say Jason Harris, Jim Halsey.
Put me on the spot here. I'm going to go Tommy Franklin, Pro Nitrous, just because you went Halsey. I think got to take one of those 2 guys for the smart money. Pro Boost, man, who's been coming on strong in the last couple of weeks? Who did Harris race in the finals?
Was it? Gosh dang it, you're putting me on the spot now.
I might go Travis Harvey.
Oh, How about Travis Harvey driving? I thought this was
Yeah.
crazy. Travis Harvey driving for
He
Justin
just stays
Swanstrom.
ready. He stays ready, man. And I think maybe coming off of
Homeboy's
that deal,
always got a helmet and a fire suit with him. Like he's
he
like
does,
Clark
dude.
Kent.
Did I tell you this deal? Like I was at Darlington for PDRA a year or two ago, and he was running, and I'll have to remember I think he was running Pro Nitrous and Pro Boost at this event. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure I'll hear about it. Homeboy had like a 010
Johnny
light.
Camp.
Oh, he raised Johnny Camp. Man, Camp's always running strong.
God.
Travis Harvey cut like an 010 light in the nitrous car, gets down to the end of the track, hops on a scooter, full fire suit helmet, rides the scooter up. The return road runs like alongside the track at Darlington, comes back up along the side of the track in front of the stands in his full gear. Travis is like 6'6" anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you ain't missing this guy. And jumps in the other car and then wins that round and goes like 0-12 or something. I mean, it's like the dude is a absolute machine, could jump at anything. And I've seen Corey and Justin both talking about how cool it was to have Travis in that car this weekend. So he's my pick. He's my pick for this weekend. We'll see if they can get that thing lined out.
It's hard to bet against
momentum.
the Carolina kid, man. It's hard to bet against him. I think he's undefeated in Big Dog this year, right? He's won them all.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, this man has the momentum. So, yeah.
I love that we have characters like that in our sport that are willing to get in anything and be a threat. Lyle Barnett is another guy that I think of that has that kind of ability to jump in anything, whether it's beer money, some big block twin turbo Chevy pickup truck, whatever the case may be, he'll jump in it and probably win. So anyways, man, good show today, dude. I'm glad we got to it. We don't talk. We take a lot of shit for not talking enough about Pro Stock Motorcycle. But having
all
that
you Pro Stock
conversation,
Motorcycle people, just record this, play this back next time. Also, how many people have we had? We've had Ellie Tonglet. We've had Angie Smith. Who else have we had on the cover from Pro Stock Bike? I think we've had a couple more that were in like a group photo thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we take care of you guys.
We're trying, man. There's a lot of drag racing going on. I went out to XRP Friday night. This is the Saturday night. Excuse me. This is the funniest story. Jimmy Dale was out there running Blue Chew, his big block 632 powered 4-door. What is that thing? Fairmont? Malibu? Anyways, he goes out and is going to race. So we want to come over and watch him. So Alicia, Sophia, and I all loaded up in the truck and drove over there. And it was so funny. Huge shout out to Michael Hollis, Barrett Green, the whole team that put on that event.
I saw your reel. It was such a big deal. You made a social media post and put together a reel. So
I did put together a reel.
Made quite an impression.
Dude, this small tire no prep thing, it's just like drag racing for like all the right reasons. There's two rules: 28-10-5s, and that might be it. Oh, and you can't run like they have a class that you can't run faster, I think, than 530. So it's like it's just one of those things where the spirit of it is really solid.
Is that what you're going to run in the Corvette? What are you going to run?
Probably
that kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah, probably. They call it Little Gangsters, and I'd say that's probably where I'll end up. I would like to run some of this small tire no prep stuff. Have to change the car around a little bit. Like the thing is, like so many of these tracks, especially down here in the South, have adopted the radial prep approach. And the car is set up to race on like radial prep right now. The front end's boomed way down and there's a lot of weight on the front of the car. And, the percentages have all changed. You used to try to get weight toward the back of the car. You know what I mean? You needed it. And now it's trying to keep the front end down. So I have to make some changes to the car. Nothing crazy. Move some weight around, loosen up the front shocks, and probably tune it, slow it down a little bit to try to go run on one of those no prep surfaces. But I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm hoping to run their event later this year in August. So that's my goal. Like, I guess, which is next in a couple of weeks.
You better. So, it's August tomorrow, which that's crazy in and of itself, man. The
school starts in 2 weeks. My kids are going back to school. It's so crazy, man. It's 150 degrees in the shade down here in Texas right now. So dog days of summer for sure, bro. But hey, man, thank you for taking the time, and thank all of you for taking the time to chat with us and spend a couple of hours around Drag Racing's water cooler. I want to give a huge shout out again to Tommy Cunningham, the whole team, John Gentry, Tommy's wife, Anita, his folks. I got to talk to him a little bit on the phone earlier. His dad was in the background, and I was talking about how much our parents talk, so I kind of felt bad. But I was just playing around. I was like, he was one. I said, hey, man, my dad needs a new parachute for his 68 Camaro or 67 Camaro, I think it is. The Warlock car. It's got like a 400-inch small block with a 5-speed Linco, and it runs like 860s. You know, I mean, it's a fast car in the quarter mile, and gonna go run Cordova coming up this weekend, I believe, and wanted to put a new parachute on it because they hadn't run quarter mile in a while. And I said, I'd have my dad call you, but he'd have you on the phone for a couple of hours. And Tommy laughed because his dad was on speakerphone. Larry, he's like, hey, now be nice. And I'm like, oh, sorry. Yeah, it's the same situation. But anyways, huge shout out to Tommy and Anita, the whole gang of Shroud Safety. Believe in what we do, believe in the sport of drag racing, and support all of us. Huge shout out to Mark Beatty, the whole team at Redline Synthetic Oils, our whole gang at Racers Club, of course, our family at flowracing.com. Appreciate you all you guys do for the sport of drag racing, and we'll see you next Wednesday right here on the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel. Thank you guys. Remember, before you bounce, click like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything that we put out. We got a brand new episode of PDRA Live tonight with Nate Van Wagenen and the boys. And remember, reaction time with Kayla Zadell on Monday mornings. And yeah, we'll see you next week. And we've got some big news dropping Friday, so I'm sure that'll be the topic of conversation next Wednesday. So stay tuned, man. We're excited. Appreciate y'all.
All right.
Thanks, gang.
Yep.
I forgot to play the outro music. Here we go. I'm going to play.
I know, man. We're missing all our production.
I know. We're missing all of our production, guys. It's terrible, dude. Good show. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Oh, this music's terrible. That was bad. There we go. Fixed.